9 reasons why you don't like being around people. The philosophy of Stoicism. Have you ever stepped into a crowded room, felt the buzz of 100 conversations, and suddenly wished you could vanish? It's more than just discomfort. It's that nagging feeling that you don't quite belong, even when you're surrounded by familiar faces. We're told that being social is essential, that human connection is the key to happiness. But sometimes being around others feels draining, as if your energy is being siphoned away. It's not that you dislike people. It's that modern social life doesn't always align with your inner needs. The pressure to conform, the endless small talk, the judgments, they all weigh on you. So, why does it feel this way? Let's dive into 9 reasons why you might feel disconnected, and how Stoicism can help you navigate this modern struggle. Number 1. You are an introvert. There's a certain quiet strength found in solitude, a peace that doesn't need the noise of the world to be complete. The stillness allows your mind to breathe, to think clearly without the constant buzz of outside influences. For you, solitude isn't something to fear or avoid. It's a space where you can finally feel free. In this quiet, your thoughts aren't just fleeting or shallow, they're deep and rich, offering a sense of clarity that is often lost in the clamor of social life. As an introvert, the world around you may feel like a constant tug-of-war between your need for personal space and society's expectations to engage outwardly. But solitude doesn't mean isolation. It's simply a return to yourself. It's not about avoiding people. It's about reconnecting with the essence of who you are. Introverts are often misunderstood because the world tends to value extroversion over introspection. While society may push for constant social interaction and group participation, your soul craves depth. You long for meaningful exchanges, where conversations go beyond small talk and into the territory of profound understanding. Yet how often do you encounter these kinds of interactions? In the modern world, most social exchanges are superficial at best. Conversations bounce from topic to topic without ever touching anything truly significant, and the energy it costs you feels like a drain rather than a reward. You might find that each social interaction becomes a transaction where you exchange precious energy for empty pleasantries and surface-level engagements. It can leave you feeling depleted, questioning whether it's worth the effort. You do value connection, more than most, but it has to be genuine. You're not searching for the next fleeting moment of excitement. You're seeking something that resonates deeply within you. When the balance of energy feels uneven, when you're left with more questions than answers, you start to wonder if the effort is justified. The truth is, the world is not particularly designed for introverts. Society praises the outgoing, the bold, and the extroverted. There's an expectation that everyone should be comfortable in large crowds, enjoy constant socializing, and thrive in group settings. When you don't meet these expectations, others may start to question your social abilities or wonder if something is wrong with you. They may fail to see the richness of your inner world, the complex thoughts and dreams that swirl within your mind, far more fulfilling than the shallow exchanges they prefer. But this doesn't make you antisocial. It simply means your social needs are different. Your energy is precious, and you choose to invest it in places where it feels valued, where your thoughts, ideas, and time can be shared meaningfully. In a world that celebrates external validation and constant interaction, the quiet power of solitude becomes not an escape, but a sanctuary. Like the Stoics before us, we understand the importance of not allowing the external world to dictate our inner peace. Freedom is the only thing you cannot have, unless you give it to others. William Blake. For you, the act of retreating is not about hiding from others, but about preserving the true essence of who you are. Solitude is your way of maintaining that strength and clarity. It is where you regain your balance, prepare for the world, and return with a renewed sense of purpose. So when others view you as antisocial, understand that this judgment is rooted in misunderstanding. You are not avoiding connection. You are simply choosing connections that reflect your true self and honor the balance you need to preserve your energy and authenticity. In today's fast-paced world, it's easy to feel like you're falling short when you don't meet the social expectations set by society. However, embracing your introverted nature is an act of self-care and wisdom. You don't need to fit into a mold that isn't yours. By understanding your need for solitude, you can build a life that allows for both meaningful connections and the quiet space necessary for reflection. As we explore the 9 reasons why you might not enjoy being around others, remember that each of these is a sign of your unique temperament, and honoring them is part of leading a fulfilled life, one grounded in self-awareness and inner strength. Number 2. Trust issues. Trust is like a fragile thread that connects us to others, a thread that can easily snap when tested. For many, that thread has broken more than once, whether by a friend who betrayed their loyalty, a partner who shattered their confidence, or a family member who let them down in the most painful way. It's not just that you don't want to trust again, it's that you simply can't afford to risk it. You know the pain of putting yourself out there, only to be let down. And it's a pain that sticks with you long after the event has passed. Trust issues aren't about paranoia. They're about self-preservation. Think about the last time you truly opened up to someone, sharing your deepest thoughts and feelings, only for those words to be twisted, misused, or worse, used against you. It's not just hurtful, it's unsettling. It leaves you feeling as though the very ground beneath you is no longer stable, as though the rules of connection are arbitrary, and you're left wondering who you can really trust. This disorientation is one of the hardest things to recover from. What happens next is even more complicated. You don't just start to question others, but you also start to question yourself. How could you have been so wrong about someone? How could you have misjudged their intentions? And how can you be sure that you won't make the same mistake again? Each new interaction becomes a gamble, one where the stakes are too high for comfort. You don't want to isolate yourself, but the fear of betrayal hangs heavy in the air. It's easier to stay guarded, to protect your heart, than to open it up and risk feeling that same sharp sting of disappointment again. The vulnerability that comes with trusting someone again feels like reopening a wound that hasn't fully healed. You aren't just afraid of being hurt. You're terrified of enduring the same pain over and over. But trust issues don't always show up as just caution. They can also make you hyper-aware, finely attuned to the smallest signals of potential betrayal. A glance that lingers a second too long, a tone of voice that doesn't match the words, a gesture that feels off. Where others might brush these off, you're taking mental notes, adding to a growing list of red flags that keeps you guarded. Every little detail counts because the cost of being wrong feels too high. And all of this happens on a subconscious level, shaping how much of yourself you're willing to share. You might still long for connection, a deep, genuine understanding, but that longing is tempered by the hard lessons life has taught you. The truth is, not everyone deserves access to your heart, and some people once trusted prove themselves unworthy of the love and loyalty you've given them. It's not that you've given up on people entirely. Deep down, you know that connection is vital to your well-being. The human need for understanding, for companionship, and for love doesn't just vanish overnight. Yet the journey back to trust is long and painstaking. It starts with small, deliberate steps. A kind word shared here, a genuine laugh there. Each small act, each honest moment, adds a layer to the rebuilding process. Trust is like a garden. It must be nurtured carefully and steadily. When you find those rare individuals who prove time and again that they're worthy of your trust, you begin to let down your guard, little by little. But until that happens, it's okay to keep your distance. It's okay to be cautious. Protecting yourself is not a weakness. It's a strength. Trust isn't something that should be given freely, it must be earned. And you have every right to demand that it be earned well, with actions that reflect the care and respect you deserve. Stoic philosophy teaches us that we are in control of our own responses. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Marcus Aurelius. So while others may disappoint you, remember that it is not your responsibility to carry the weight of their actions. You have the power to decide how much you give and to whom. You are the keeper of your own peace, and the boundaries you set are not just about protecting your heart. They're about preserving your inner strength. In modern life, we often rush to trust and rush to forgive, believing that we're supposed to let go quickly. But the Stoics understood that trust is a valuable thing and should not be freely given to everyone. Rebuilding trust takes time and careful thought, and that's okay. The next time you feel your guard going up, ask yourself, is this person deserving of my trust? Have they shown through consistent actions that they can handle it? Don't rush to let them in. Your trust is a gift, and it should be given to those who have earned it, not those who expect it just because they're present. You are in charge of how much of yourself you offer. Keep that in mind, and use your past experiences to make wiser choices moving forward. Trust is not a given. It's a hard-earned gift, one that requires patience, introspection, and wisdom. By learning to protect your peace, you also begin to reclaim your power. Trust can be rebuilt, but only on your terms. Don't feel guilty for keeping your distance when you need to. And when you do decide to open your heart again, make sure it's to someone who has proven, through their actions and consistency, that they deserve it. Don't give in to your emotions. Let your actions be guided by reason. Seneca. Let reason and wisdom guide you in the delicate process of rebuilding trust. Not haste, not desperation, but a calm, rational decision rooted in what is best for your heart and soul. Number 3. Spending time with the wrong people. The only way to deal with this life meaningfully is to find one's passion and purpose in it, and to surround yourself with people who help you build that. Epictetus. Have you ever found yourself in a conversation that felt more like a draining chore than a meaningful exchange? Or worse, surrounded by people who just seem to take, and take from your energy without giving anything back? It's not that you don't want to be around people, but when the wrong people are around you, it can feel like emotional labor, like you're giving so much of yourself and receiving nothing but frustration in return. The truth is, spending time with the wrong people is one of the most underrated reasons why you might shy away from socializing. You're not avoiding connection. You're avoiding negativity, frustration, and people who leave you feeling worse than when you arrived. We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality. Seneca. You see, it's not always the act of socializing that's the issue. It's the quality of the people you're spending your time with. You know the type, the ones who drain you, the overt talkers who dominate every conversation with their own stories without ever asking about you. You know the ones who disguise insults as compliments, making you question their true intentions and your own sanity. Or the ones who endlessly complain, turning every casual conversation into an exhausting emotional workout. They don't just talk, they take. And before you know it, you're left feeling completely depleted, questioning why you even showed up. There's a certain kind of person who can sap the very life out of a room, often without even realizing it. These are the so-called energy vampires, the ones whose constant complaints, negativity, or unnecessary drama leave you feeling like you've just run a marathon. What was supposed to be a casual social event or a friendly hangout now feels like a chore, an obligation that you have to endure just to keep the peace. And deep down, you start to ask yourself, is this really worth it? Why should you waste your precious time and energy on people who, consciously or not, make you feel worse than you did before you met them? Why should you continually subject yourself to situations that leave you feeling drained, exhausted, and frustrated? As the Stoics wisely remind us, it is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Epictetus. You see, it's not about what happens when you're around these people. It's about the way their presence and behavior drain you, and your decision to either accept that or take control of your situation. It's not just the overtly toxic people you need to avoid. It's also those who don't truly understand you, those who can't respect your boundaries or preferences. For example, maybe you have a friend who constantly drags you to loud, chaotic bars, even though you'd much prefer a peaceful coffee shop where you can have a quiet conversation. Or a colleague who insists that you join every office party, even when you'd rather head home and enjoy some solitude or a good book. It's not that you don't appreciate their company or their intentions. You understand they're trying to connect. But what they don't realize is that their idea of fun doesn't match yours, and that disconnect can be exhausting. Why should you sacrifice your own well-being just to meet someone else's expectations? It's not selfish. It's about respecting your own needs. It's about choosing the people who lift you up, not the ones who exhaust you or make you feel misunderstood. Over time, these repeated encounters with the wrong people can take a toll. You start to associate socializing with discomfort, awkwardness, and frustration. You might begin to wonder if it's worth the effort at all. It's not that you don't like people. It's that you're tired of spending time with people who don't respect your boundaries, your values, or your need for peace. The solution isn't to isolate yourself or shut others out entirely. It's about being intentional with the people you choose to engage with. Associate with people who are likely to improve you. Seneca. Surround yourself with individuals who add value to your life, not those who take it away. Choose the people who make you feel seen, heard, and appreciated. When you do this, socializing becomes a source of joy, rather than a drain. How can you start spending more time with people who bring out the best in you? First, start by setting clear boundaries. It's okay to say no to invitations that don't align with your preferences. It's okay to leave a conversation when it starts to feel like emotional labor. And most importantly, it's okay to protect your energy. Your time is precious, and the people you share it with should respect that. Just as the Stoics believed in surrounding themselves with wise and virtuous people, you too can choose your company wisely. Don't be afraid to step away from situations or individuals that don't nourish you. At the end of the day, socializing should be about connection, not depletion. When you find the right people, it feels like you're refueled, not drained. The truth is, you deserve to spend your time with people who make you feel good about yourself. Don't settle for anything less. As Marcus Aurelius said, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Be the person who values your own peace and let that guide you in choosing your social circle. Choose wisely, and the people who truly support you will gravitate toward you. 4. Low self-esteem. Have you ever found yourself withdrawing from social situations not because you dislike the people around you, but because of that voice in your head telling you that you're not good enough? That voice that whispers, "You're not interesting enough," or "You're not worthy of their time." It's a feeling many men experience, particularly as we get older, and it's not something you openly talk about. On the outside, you may appear fine, even confident, but beneath the surface there's a storm of self-doubt brewing. You begin to replay past interactions in your mind, analyzing every word, every expression, every possible mistake. Did they think I was boring? Did they notice that awkward laugh? Did I say something stupid? It's easy to fall into this trap, isn't it? The more you replay these thoughts, the more your mind convinces you that every interaction is a potential minefield of judgment and rejection. Socializing starts to feel like stepping onto a stage, unprepared, exposed, vulnerable. And as you continue to dwell in this sea of self-criticism, the cycle deepens. The more you withdraw, the more disconnected you become, and the more disconnected you feel, the harder it becomes to break free from that isolation. This self-doubt, this voice in your head, isn't who you truly are. It's a narrative you've built, a story that your mind has been telling you for so long that it feels like the truth. We've all been there, thinking that everyone around us is judging every move we make, when in reality, they're probably too focused on their own lives to even notice. Stoicism teaches us that it's not the external events that disturb us, but our judgments about those events. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." The very same principle applies to social situations. The discomfort you feel is not caused by the people you're around, but by the negative stories you tell yourself about how they see you. It's easy to believe that you're the only one struggling with self-doubt or feeling disconnected, but I assure you, you're not alone. We all have moments where we question our worth, where we feel like we don't measure up to the expectations we think others have of us. So what can you do about it? The first step is recognizing that this narrative is not your reality. The world is far less judgmental than your inner critic would have you believe. The more you focus on what you think others are thinking, the more disconnected you become. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more you hold yourself back, the more isolated you feel, and the more isolated you feel, the more you withdraw. It's a vicious cycle that keeps you locked in a cage of your own making. To break free from this cycle, you must first realize that the fear of judgment is often exaggerated. When you recognize that the world is not as critical as you perceive it to be, you free yourself from the mental chains that have kept you in this cycle of self-doubt. Stoicism offers a powerful antidote to this kind of thinking. It teaches us that we cannot control what others think, but we can control our reactions. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength, said Marcus Aurelius. This is a liberating idea. If you stop worrying about how others might perceive you, you reclaim your peace of mind. In modern life, this could mean allowing yourself to let go of the pressure to impress others or to be something you're not. It could mean accepting that social interactions don't need to be perfect, and that your value as a person is not tied to how well you perform in them. When you embrace this idea, you'll notice that the anxiety around socializing starts to fade. Instead of seeing each interaction as a performance, you can begin to approach them with authenticity and a sense of ease. You'll no longer be burdened by the fear of judgment because you'll realize that others are too concerned with their own lives to scrutinize yours. If you still find yourself trapped in a cycle of self-doubt, take small steps toward re-engaging with others. Start with brief interactions, where the stakes are low. Perhaps it's a quick chat with a colleague or a short conversation with a friend. The goal isn't to impress anyone, but simply to be present. Gradually, as you become more comfortable in these smaller interactions, you'll begin to see that the world is far more forgiving than you've been led to believe. You'll notice that people aren't judging you as harshly as you feared. In fact, they're probably not judging you at all. Instead, they're more likely to appreciate your authenticity and your presence in the moment. Remember, self-esteem is not about being perfect. It's about accepting yourself as you are. As you practice this mindset, your confidence will grow. Not because you've become flawless, but because you've learned to accept and love yourself with all your imperfections. He who is not a good servant will not be a good master. As Epictetus said, this applies not only to how we manage our relationships with others, but also to how we relate to ourselves. If you can't accept yourself, how can you expect others to accept you? By building a healthy, realistic self-esteem, you'll naturally attract the kind of people who appreciate you for who you are, not for who you think you need to be. Ultimately, the lesson here is that low self-esteem is not a reflection of who you truly are, but a distortion created by your mind. When you let go of the fear of judgment and embrace your own value, you free yourself to live more fully. The greatest wealth is to live content with little, said Socrates, reminding us that happiness doesn't come from impressing others but from accepting ourselves as enough. It's time to stop listening to the negative voice in your head and start embracing the reality that you are worthy of connection and respect. The more you practice this, the more you will find peace and confidence in your relationships with others. You are enough, just as you are, and the world will see that when you stop trying to be someone you're not. So go ahead. Step into the world with the assurance that your worth isn't defined by others' opinions, but by your own actions, your authenticity, and your self-acceptance. Number 5. Social anxiety. Have you ever felt that tightness in your chest, your palms suddenly moist with sweat, at the thought of walking into a room full of people? It's not just shyness, it's a full-on battle in your mind, a sense that every social interaction could spiral into disaster. It feels like the stakes are high and the weight of every word, gesture, and look is amplified. Social anxiety isn't just the discomfort of meeting new people, it's the mental spiral that makes simple situations feel overwhelming. For many of us, it's something we can hardly explain, yet we've all felt it at some point. This fear of judgment, this concern about not measuring up, this sense of being constantly scrutinized. Take a moment and reflect. How many times have you had to wrestle with your thoughts before stepping into a social gathering, even though you know the people there are friendly and the atmosphere is casual? You think, what if I say the wrong thing? What if I don't say anything at all? You feel your pulse quicken as your mind runs through scenarios, each more disastrous than the last. The more you try to calm yourself, the more overwhelming it becomes. And by the time you arrive, you're already mentally exhausted, feeling like you've run a marathon in your mind. Social anxiety can take even the most straightforward interactions and turn them into mountains you need to climb. When you're at a gathering, nothing feels natural. Every smile feels forced, and every pause in conversation seems deafening. You become hyper-aware of your body language, the tone of your voice, the way you're holding your drink, your posture. Every little detail becomes a source of self-criticism. The anxiety doesn't let up after the event ends either. Instead, it transforms into a post-mortem analysis of every single thing you could have done differently. Did I seem awkward? Did I talk too much or too little? These thoughts repeat in your mind like a loop, and by the time you've thought through everything, you feel even more drained than before. It's not that you don't want to connect with people. In fact, deep down you crave that connection. You want to belong, to share, to feel like you're part of the conversation. But the fear of being judged, misunderstood, or simply not measuring up can feel like a wall that you just can't climb over. And so you retreat. Not because you enjoy being alone, but because the thought of facing that social pressure is just too overwhelming. It's self-preservation. For many, social anxiety is rooted in past experiences, moments of embarrassment, rejection, or ridicule that left lasting scars on the psyche. Think about a time when you were the center of unwanted attention, when something small you said or did was blown out of proportion and it haunted you long after. Those memories don't fade easily. They stay with you. And when similar situations arise, your mind pulls them back up, as if it's trying to protect you from making the same mistakes. But in reality, this replays your fears over and over, magnifying them into something far larger than the original incident. While others might brush off a minor social misstep, you can't help but replay it, convinced that one awkward moment somehow defines you. Over time, avoiding social situations becomes its own trap. The more you pull back, the more your social skills rust. The fewer interactions you have, the more intimidating the idea of socializing becomes. It's a cruel paradox. You avoid interaction because it feels painful, but that avoidance only strengthens your anxiety, making future encounters even more difficult. You begin to feel more isolated and misunderstood, stuck in a loop of self-doubt that becomes harder to escape. But here's something worth considering. The world is not as harsh a judge as your mind tells you. The truth is, most people are too wrapped up in their own lives to scrutinize yours as closely as you imagine. The self-criticism we impose on ourselves often doesn't match the reality of the situation. The world isn't out to catch you in your mistakes. In fact, most people are far more forgiving than you realize. But breaking free from the grip of social anxiety isn't an easy task. It requires time, patience, and, above all, self-compassion. The first step is recognizing that this fear of judgment is, in many ways, exaggerated. It's about understanding that your anxiety is a product of your thoughts, not reality, and that you have the power to challenge those thoughts. One powerful way to begin overcoming social anxiety is by taking small steps, Baby steps, really. Start with situations where the pressure is low, like a brief chat with a colleague or a quiet conversation with a friend. These low-stakes interactions allow you to practice being present without the intense fear of judgment. You don't have to be perfect in these interactions. The goal is simply to engage and be yourself. As you do this, you'll begin to realize that your worst fears rarely come true. People don't notice your awkwardness nearly as much as you think, and even if they do, they're probably more understanding than you expect. Over time, this practice of engaging, even in small ways, can help you build confidence and resilience. A great Stoic insight from Epictetus captures this perfectly. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. In the case of social anxiety, this means recognizing that you can't control the outcome of every social situation, but you can control your response. Instead of letting anxiety dictate your actions, you can choose to engage with self-compassion, knowing that it's okay to be imperfect. The more you practice this, the easier it becomes to face discomfort, and over time you'll find yourself feeling more comfortable in social settings. But even if it takes time, it's crucial to remember this. Your mental health is more important than any societal expectation. It's okay to take things slow. In fact, it's necessary. Your well-being matters more than the opinions or judgments of others, and it's perfectly fine to prioritize your peace of mind over external pressures. Every step you take toward overcoming social anxiety is a victory, and those victories add up. With time, patience, and the right mindset, you can transform the way you view social interactions. You can learn to face them with confidence, not because you're perfect, but because you're resilient. And eventually you'll realize that the world isn't as daunting as it once seemed. Social anxiety is not a permanent condition. It's a mental habit that can be broken. As you challenge your fears and embrace discomfort, you'll discover that your ability to connect with others grows stronger. So take a deep breath, trust yourself, and take that first step toward connection. It's not about perfection. It's about presence and being real with those around you, knowing that in the end, the world is more accepting than we often believe. Remember, you are not alone in this journey. The more we embrace our shared humanity, the more we realize that we're all in this together. Number 6, you value your peace and solitude. There's a powerful and often overlooked reason why many people, perhaps like yourself, find it difficult to be around others. You value your peace and solitude. It's not that you don't enjoy the company of others, but the tranquility that comes from being alone holds a special place in your heart. In a world that's constantly pulling you in every direction, demands at work, expectations from family, and the relentless pressure of social media, peace can feel like a rare luxury. And for those of us who truly appreciate solitude, it's not about avoiding people. It's about protecting your mental well-being, about finding space to reconnect with yourself in a way that the noise of the world just doesn't allow. As Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic philosophers, wisely said, "Nowhere can a man find a quieter or more peaceful retreat than in his own mind." This is a sentiment that resonates deeply, doesn't it? It's in moments of solitude that you can stop, take a deep breath, and listen to your thoughts without distraction. It's in this quiet that you find your inner peace, rejuvenate your spirit, and reflect on the deeper, more meaningful questions of life. In today's fast-paced, always connected world, solitude is often misunderstood. Many people perceive it as something negative, as if being alone means something is wrong with you. But I want you to think for a moment. When was the last time you had a moment to yourself? A moment when you weren't distracted by a conversation, or a phone call, or any of the constant demands on your attention? Do you even remember the last time you just breathed, without any pressure from the outside world? For many people, solitude isn't an escape from life. It's a return to it. It's a chance to recalibrate, to reset, and to gather strength. In solitude, you can restore the balance that the world constantly seems to try and tip over. And if you're someone who craves peace, like I am, you know just how important it is to have those moments of quiet. The Stoics would argue that solitude isn't loneliness, it's self-care. It's a way to preserve your energy so that you can face the world with a clearer, more focused mind. It's easy to forget in a world so centered around connection that solitude is not the enemy. In fact, for many, it's an essential part of life. Every conversation, every social interaction, whether big or small, takes energy. But solitude doesn't just recharge you physically, it also gives you the mental space to focus on what truly matters to you. It's not about isolating yourself or rejecting others. It's about knowing when you need to step back, to take a moment to reflect and to restore. It's about creating a healthy balance, where you can be present with others without losing yourself in the process. After all, if you don't care for your own peace, how can you be there for anyone else? This is why, when the thought of being constantly surrounded by people feels overwhelming, it's important to embrace that need for space. It's okay to say no. It's okay to decline invitations if you know it will drain you. In fact, it's necessary. The Stoic philosophers understood this well. They didn't believe that you had to be constantly surrounded by others to live a meaningful life. Instead, they valued the quiet moments that allowed them to think, to grow, and to reflect. They knew that by taking care of their inner selves, they would be able to give more to the world around them when the time was right. So, the next time you feel that sense of dread when faced with a busy social calendar, don't panic. Don't push yourself to fit into the mold that others expect of you. Instead, take the time you need for yourself. Go for a walk in the park, read a book, meditate. These moments aren't wasted. They're a necessary part of your well-being. By taking care of yourself, you'll be better equipped to handle the world when you do step back into it. And let's be honest for a moment. How many times have you come out of a quiet retreat feeling restored, refreshed, and ready to face the world again? Maybe after spending an afternoon in nature, or perhaps after an hour alone with a book, you've felt a renewed sense of energy, a restored sense of clarity. The truth is, when you prioritize solitude and personal peace, you are, in turn, enhancing the quality of your relationships and interactions with others. Because when you're at peace with yourself, you can approach the world from a place of strength, not depletion. You can give more of yourself, and what you offer is more genuine and present. We live in a time where people are constantly seeking more social interactions, more obligations, more distractions. But if you stop for a moment and reflect on your own experiences, you might realize that it's not always about doing more. Sometimes it's about doing less. It's about valuing the quiet moments, the ones that allow you to reconnect with who you truly are. You don't need to fill every moment with noise. Sometimes the best thing you can do for your peace of mind is simply to be still. Solitude isn't about avoiding life. It's about enhancing it. So the next time you feel the pressure to always be on or constantly socializing, remember that your peace matters more than anyone else's expectations. Embrace solitude, and you'll find a deeper connection with both yourself and the world around you. In a world that pushes us to be constantly connected, how can you carve out moments of solitude that restore and strengthen you? The Stoic philosophers weren't just about facing the world with strength. They were about finding moments of peace and reflection that allowed them to move through life with clarity. Maybe it's time to do the same. So I encourage you, don't be afraid of solitude. Welcome it. Use it to reflect, to grow, and to reclaim your energy. In the end, you'll find that it's not just an escape from the noise of the world, it's a return to yourself. Number 7. You are highly sensitive to energy. A significant reason why you might avoid being around people is the heightened sensitivity you have to the energy that others emit. It's not always about what they say or do, but the invisible currents of energy they radiate, whether it's positive, negative, or neutral, that profoundly affect your own experience in social situations. Have you ever walked into a room, feeling perfectly fine, only to be hit with a wave of discomfort or anxiety, almost as if the atmosphere itself is charged with tension? This feeling, This intuitive awareness of the emotional state of those around you is more common than you might think, and it can make socializing feel like a challenge. For those of us sensitive to these emotional undercurrents, it can feel as though we are not only interacting with people, but absorbing their moods, frustrations, and even their happiness. As the Stoic philosopher Seneca once said, "A wise man is never less alone than when he is alone." While this may sound like an invitation to solitude, for those who are sensitive to external energies, even solitude can feel like a respite from the barrage of emotions we encounter in social settings. It's not about avoiding connection. It's about seeking peace in an environment that often feels emotionally overwhelming. When you're attuned to the energy around you, even small changes in body language or tone of voice can trigger emotional responses. You're hyper-aware of the shifts in the atmosphere, whether someone is irritated, happy, anxious, or excited, and it can feel as though you are constantly processing and reacting to this emotional landscape. This deep sensitivity to energy can be exhausting, especially in larger social settings, where the emotional climate shifts rapidly. Have you ever been in a gathering where the energy seemed to change suddenly, and you found yourself feeling drained without fully understanding why? The people around you may not even be saying anything, but you're still picking up on their moods. It's as though you're constantly absorbing the emotional states of others, and this constant emotional influx can leave you feeling fatigued and emotionally drained. The worst part is that the more you absorb, the more overwhelmed you feel, and the less you want to engage with others, as it seems like an emotional minefield. This heightened sensitivity is not something you can simply turn off, and trying to ignore it can lead to burnout. So, it's crucial to find ways to protect your energy and preserve your peace, even in the most social of environments. One of the most effective ways to manage this sensitivity is by practicing emotional boundaries. The Stoics were experts at teaching us how to preserve our peace amidst external chaos. They believed in the importance of controlling what we can, our own thoughts, emotions, and reactions, and letting go of what we can't control. In modern life, this means learning to distinguish between your emotional state and the energy of those around you. You have the power to decide how much of someone else's emotional weight you will carry. You don't have to absorb every bit of negativity or anxiety that others project. Just because someone is anxious, angry, or upset doesn't mean you have to take on that same emotional burden. Developing this skill isn't easy, but it's essential for maintaining your own mental and emotional well-being. It's about understanding that while you can empathize with others, you don't have to be consumed by their emotions. In fact, one of the greatest lessons in Stoic philosophy is that we have the power to choose how much we allow external circumstances to affect us. As Epictetus wisely said, we are not disturbed by what happens to us, but by our thoughts about what happens. This insight can serve as a powerful reminder. You have the choice to respond to others' emotions in a way that doesn't compromise your own peace. It's also important to recognize that not all environments or people are conducive to your emotional well-being. There are certain people or situations that will inevitably drain you more than others, and that's okay. The key is knowing your limits and respecting them. If you recognize that a particular person or environment makes you feel consistently uncomfortable or drained, it's perfectly acceptable to step back and prioritize your emotional health. It doesn't make you weak, nor does it mean you're avoiding life. It simply means you are practicing self-care. The Stoics, particularly Marcus Aurelius, often wrote about the importance of self-preservation and maintaining inner tranquility. He urged us to avoid unnecessary disturbances and to focus on what we can control, our own thoughts, actions, and responses. If social situations consistently deplete your energy, it's time to reevaluate how much time and effort you invest in them. You have the right to protect your peace, and sometimes that means stepping away from situations or people who do not contribute positively to your emotional state. If you are someone who feels deeply sensitive to the energy around you, I encourage you to embrace this sensitivity rather than view it as a weakness. In a world where emotional intelligence is increasingly valued, your ability to perceive and understand the feelings of others is a powerful tool. However, It's equally important to set boundaries and ensure that you are not overwhelmed by the emotions of others. This doesn't mean you have to cut yourself off from the world, but it does mean that you have the responsibility to protect your own peace. Just as you wouldn't leave your house unlocked in a dangerous neighborhood, you shouldn't leave your emotional state vulnerable to external chaos. Instead, build the resilience to create a safe space within yourself, one that allows you to navigate the world without losing yourself in the process. Ultimately, the key to managing this heightened sensitivity to energy is balance. It's about learning how to engage with the world and others without letting their emotions dominate your own. Take time to cultivate practices that restore your energy, whether it's through meditation, mindfulness, or simply taking moments of solitude. And remember, just as the Stoics believed, you have the power to choose how much of the world's noise and chaos you let in. You can cultivate a sense of peace from within, no matter what is happening around you. By practicing this emotional discipline, you'll not only preserve your own peace but also engage more meaningfully with those who truly add value to your life. Number 8. Fear of being judged. Fear of judgment is a powerful reason why many people avoid socializing. You may have experienced it, the constant feeling that every word you say, every action you take, is being examined under a magnifying glass. The anxiety of saying something wrong, appearing foolish, or simply not meeting the expectations of others can make social situations feel like a trap. In those moments, it's easy to feel as though you're constantly under scrutiny. However, the Stoic mindset provides a remedy to this fear, encouraging us to shift our focus inward. The Stoics teach that our peace does not depend on others' approval, but on how we choose to view ourselves and our actions. At the heart of the fear of being judged is often an attachment to external validation. We may find ourselves seeking approval, trying to fit into a mold that others expect us to conform to. This pursuit of external validation can be exhausting and limiting, leaving us feeling anxious, inauthentic, and disconnected from our true selves. The Stoic teachings challenge this mindset by urging us to value our own judgment above the approval of others. We often forget that most people are not as focused on us as we think. In fact, many are too preoccupied with their own insecurities to closely examine ours. This realization can be freeing. When we stop worrying about the judgment of others, we can step into a place of authenticity. We begin to recognize that our worth is not determined by others' opinions of us, but by our own values and actions. When we embrace this perspective, we stop measuring ourselves against external standards and start living according to what truly matters to us. In today's world, social media has only amplified the fear of judgment. Platforms like Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook thrive on likes, comments, and shares, which have become modern-day forms of validation. But this pursuit of external approval can be a dangerous trap, one that robs us of our inner peace. How many times have you found yourself refreshing your feed, waiting for the next like or comment, only to feel empty when it doesn't come? Social media makes it easy to measure your worth based on what others think. But this is a superficial and fleeting way of determining your value. In reality, the only judgment that matters is the one you pass on yourself. Your self-worth should not be contingent on the approval of others, especially when that approval is often conditional and short-lived. By turning to Stoic principles, we can begin to shift our focus away from external validation and instead nurture our internal sense of worth. The Stoics understood that by living a life of virtue, by acting according to our values and principles, we create our own measure of success and happiness. In doing so, we free ourselves from the prison of judgment and can live with greater authenticity and peace. It's easy to get caught up in the cycle of seeking external validation, especially in a world that often rewards popularity, status, and appearance. In moments of self-doubt, ask yourself whether you're living according to your own values or simply trying to meet the expectations of others. It's important to recognize that not everyone will agree with you, and that's okay. We don't need universal approval to live meaningful, fulfilling lives. The Stoics taught that our happiness comes from within, from aligning our actions with our values, not from seeking approval or avoiding judgment. One way to apply Stoic wisdom to this fear of judgment is by practicing self-reflection. Each day, take a moment to ask yourself, did I act in alignment with my principles today? Did I remain true to myself, regardless of what others might have thought? When you answer these questions honestly, you'll begin to realize that your own approval is far more important than the opinions of others. By practicing this kind of introspection, you build a stronger sense of self-confidence and resilience against judgment. Over time, this will help you embrace social situations with a greater sense of peace, knowing that you are already enough, regardless of how others perceive you. Additionally, it's important to remember that judgment is often not as personal as we make it out to be. When someone judges us, it often says more about their own insecurities or worldview than it does about our character. In a sense, judgment is an external reflection of a person's inner state, not a reflection of our worth. By understanding this, we can take judgment less personally and not let it affect our sense of self. The next time you feel judged, remind yourself that it's not a reflection of who you are, but rather of the other person's lens through which they see the world. This understanding can free you from the power that others' opinions have over you. In practical terms, you can begin to counter the fear of judgment by taking small, courageous steps to express your true self. Start by speaking your mind, even if it feels uncomfortable. Practice setting boundaries and standing firm in your decisions, regardless of how others might react. The more you practice being true to yourself, the easier it becomes to ignore the noise of judgment and stay focused on what truly matters to you. You'll find that as you become more authentic, others will begin to respect you for your honesty and conviction. And even if they don't, you'll find peace in the fact that you've lived in accordance with your own values. The Stoic mindset offers a powerful antidote to the fear of judgment. By embracing the teachings of Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, we can learn to focus on what is within our control, our thoughts, actions, and responses, rather than obsessing over what others think of us. When we stop seeking external validation, we free ourselves from the burden of judgment and begin to live more authentically. The judgment of others is ultimately out of our hands, but how we respond to it is entirely within our control. By cultivating a sense of inner peace and confidence, we can navigate social situations with greater ease and authenticity, knowing that our true worth is determined by our own values, not the opinions of others. Number 9. Overwhelm from social obligations. In today's fast-paced world, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by social obligations. It seems like every day you're faced with invitations to gatherings, requests to attend meetings, or suggestions to participate in activities that, frankly, don't resonate with you. These constant demands can make socializing feel less like a choice and more like a chore. You're not necessarily avoiding people, but the weight of feeling obligated to be everywhere at once, doing things that drain your energy, can quickly build up. Have you ever found yourself exhausted after spending an entire day fulfilling social commitments that left you feeling disconnected, or worse, empty? It's like being stuck on a treadmill that never stops, always running, but getting nowhere. The root of the issue isn't that you dislike people, but rather that these obligations are overwhelming, leaving you longing for the peace of solitude. But here's where the Stoics can offer valuable insight. As Epictetus, a Stoic philosopher, once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This profound insight tells us that it's not the obligation itself that overwhelms us, it's our mindset and how we choose to engage with these demands. In our modern world, we are constantly being pulled in different directions. Whether it's work, family, or social gatherings, the pressure to fulfill our duties can feel endless. Every interaction, every event, starts to feel like a responsibility instead of an opportunity for connection. Have you ever felt trapped by a calendar full of meetings or social events where each yes you say just leads to more obligations piling up? When this cycle starts, it can lead to burnout. where all you crave is a break, a quiet moment to yourself. But the Stoic philosophy invites us to challenge this overwhelming sense of duty. It teaches us the importance of distinguishing between what is truly necessary and what is simply an expectation imposed by others. Stoicism encourages us to act according to our values, not to fulfill every demand placed on us. By doing so, we can find the balance between social engagement and personal peace. One of the key lessons from Stoic thought is the importance of prioritizing our time and energy. In the world today, it's easy to get caught in a whirlwind of social commitments, especially when we feel guilty about turning people down. It's easy to say yes to every invitation, to attend every meeting, and to participate in every event, simply because we fear letting others down. But is that really serving you? The Stoics would argue that when we act out of obligation, rather than choice, we compromise our well-being and sense of peace. Remember, Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, wisely noted, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." This is a call to reclaim your personal power, to make intentional choices about how you spend your time, rather than simply reacting to every social demand placed on you. By adopting a Stoic mindset, you can recognize that not every invitation, no matter how polite or well-intentioned, deserves a yes. In fact, practicing the art of saying no can be one of the most liberating things you do for your peace of mind. When you choose to prioritize the commitments that align with your values and goals, you're making room for more meaningful and fulfilling interactions. How many times have you attended a social event only to realize you weren't really connecting with anyone, or that you would have been happier spending that time alone, or with a smaller, more intimate group? The Stoics recognize the value of quality over quantity in relationships and activities. True social fulfillment doesn't come from attending every event or pleasing everyone. It comes from focusing on relationships and engagements that genuinely align with your personal values and desires. The Stoics were not advocates of isolation, but rather emphasized that time spent in reflection, solitude, or with a few trusted individuals is far more valuable than mindlessly fulfilling social obligations. Modern life often bombards us with the idea that we should be on all the time, that we should always be present, participating, and socializing. Social media exacerbates this pressure, making us feel like we're falling behind if we're not constantly sharing, liking, or commenting. This cycle of comparison can leave us feeling depleted, as though we must prove our worth through constant engagement. But the Stoic perspective asks you to step back and reflect. Do I really want to live my life according to everyone else's expectations? Or am I willing to create space for what genuinely matters to me? What if, instead of rushing to fulfill every social obligation, you took a moment to assess what would truly nourish you, what would bring you real joy and satisfaction? By saying no, the next time you feel overwhelmed by a packed schedule of social obligations, take a moment to pause and reflect. Ask yourself, is this really something that aligns with who I am and what I value? Or is it just an expectation I'm fulfilling to avoid guilt or disappointment? It's okay to say no. In fact, by saying no to what drains you, you're saying yes to yourself, your well-being, your peace, and your true needs. The Stoics weren't suggesting we withdraw entirely from society, but rather that we approach social obligations with intentionality. By practicing discernment, you can engage in social activities that bring you joy and fulfillment, while letting go of those that simply add unnecessary stress to your life. And as you do this, you'll likely find that the relationships and activities that truly resonate with you will become more rewarding, and you'll feel more centered, balanced, and at peace. By embracing the Stoic practice of managing your social obligations and focusing on what truly matters, you can create a life that is not dominated by endless duties and expectations. You will cultivate a life of intentionality, where you choose your engagements based on your values and priorities rather than out of obligation. This simple yet powerful shift can lead to greater peace, joy, and fulfillment in your social interactions. So as you navigate the busy, often overwhelming demands of life, remember that you are not bound to say yes to every invitation. Instead, take control of your time and energy, and let your choices be guided by the wisdom of Stoicism. As we wrap up today's discussion on the 9 reasons why you might not enjoy being around people, I encourage you to reflect on these Stoic principles and think about how they can be applied in your own life. Whether it's embracing solitude, setting healthy boundaries, or letting go of the fear of judgment, these insights are powerful tools for cultivating inner peace and building stronger, more authentic connections with others. Remember, as Marcus Aurelius wisely said, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. So how can you shift your mindset today to create more peace and fulfillment in your interactions? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let me know which of these principles you find most valuable. Don't forget to like and share this video with anyone who might benefit from a little Stoic wisdom. Keep growing, keep reflecting, and as always, stay Stoic in your life.